You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Good to see you again.
Good to be back.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny, Kirk, the topic you were talking about at the end of last week's episode, because
Oh, yeah.
what I had teed up already for this week kind of pulls off of that. And in fact, for our patrons, if you listen to the bonus material for that show, really does an extremely nice segue into what I'm talking about this week, because I am talking about dinosaurs.
We talked about that with the patrons. Yep.
Yeah. So, I don't think about dinosaurs as much as you might think, because I although I have twins who recently turned 5, they're not that into dinosaurs, which is, I feel like, kind of unusual for preschoolers.
Give them a little bit.
But they've definitely absorbed some information, because that is the sea that preschoolers swim in, I think. Dinosaurs.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But they get dinosaur-themed gifts occasionally on gift-giving occasions, such as Christmas, that happened fairly recently. And I was looking at some of the stuff they'd been given, and it got me to thinking, why do the dinosaurs on the stuff you buy still look basically the same as the dinosaurs from the stuff when I was a kid?
Yep.
Which we know is wrong. Yeah.
We know it's wrong.
We all know it's wrong.
In the last 40 years, the amount we have learned about how dinosaurs actually looked is huge.
They have feathers now.
Right.
They always had feathers, but we know that they had feathers.
They're not selling the products to the kids, they're selling it to the adults. And if it looked weird, the adults would be like, that doesn't look right.
I mean,
the adults are wrong.
You can definitely buy some books and stuff that have more accurate dinosaur depictions, like with feathers and so forth. But, a lot of the more basic preschool level stuff, no, it just looks the same. And it's, why has so little of the scientific consensus made it into popular dinosaur themed materials? I think we can really lay a lot of the blame at the feet of Steven Spielberg and the Jurassic Park franchise.
Yeah, probably. They did update some stuff in the movies, but
not enough. There were some feathers, but there could be more feathers.
Right. So, I guess I have not seen the most recent Jurassic Park movie, Jurassic World Dominion, which came out in 2022, but apparently there was a feathered dinosaur in it. Good. Right. And to give Spielberg some credit, in 1993, when the first Jurassic Park movie came out, well, it had kind of been discussed in the paleontological world about dinosaurs perhaps having feathers. It wasn't confirmed or settled science at that point.
Right.
And
that movie actually led us to learn more about dinosaurs, didn't it? Because they used paleontology or real paleontologists to consult, right?
I think they did, yeah. But Hollywood license too.
Right.
For sure.
The first confirmed feathered dinosaur fossil was described in 2001. So first.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 1993 to 2001. So yes, dinosaurs had feathers. A lot of dinosaurs had feathers. Feathers started out as a kind of, I think as you mentioned, Kirk, maybe it was in the Patreon bonus, but feathers started out as more single filament kind of hair-like structures that were for warmth, and then gradually evolved into the kind of feathers we see today with shafts and veins that can be used for flight.
Okay.
They're just modified scales is all they really are.
I do have to say this. I'm going to interrupt you just for a hot second, Victoria.
Sure.
This is the closest in 155 episodes that we've gotten to overlapping or having the same topic. That's
Yeah.
wild to me. I just had to point that out. Please continue telling me about dinosaurs and feathers.
Okay. Yeah, so, it makes sense that dinosaurs have feathers because paleontologists now agree that the birds of today are dinosaurs. They're the
they're
descendants of
dinosaurs, yeah.
theropod dinosaurs. And when we're talking about non-theropod dinosaurs, sometimes scientists say non-avian dinosaurs because, they're just talking about the ones that aren't birds.
Right.
And theropods were the group that included like T-Rex and velociraptors and ones that went on two legs like that looked, kind of a little bird-like in some ways.
Yeah.
So, as we were discussing in the bonus episode last week, there are some dinosaurs for which we have direct fossil evidence that they were covered in feathers, including what color the feathers were based on their molecular structure, which is amazing.
So cool.
And
That's so
there have even
fun.
recently been discovered some dinosaur, like a complete dinosaur tail covered in feathers and dinosaur wings covered in feathers from very small dinosaurs that were preserved in amber, which is
Whoa.
incredibly cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know what I'm going to do, Victoria? What I talked about last week for our patrons
Yeah.
ties in so well and importantly with this, almost as like some deeper background information on some of the things you talked about. I know a lot of our listeners don't ever get to hear that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make last week's bonus free to everyone. I'm going to post it up and make
Fun
the link
bonus.
free to everyone.
Happy New Year,
For
everybody.
a bonus for everybody for the new year. If you are kind of wondering what is some of this bonus material like that some of our patrons get to hear, I'm going to have everybody, you can go right now after you hear this over to patreon.com/strangebynature, and you'll be able to hear that bonus episode or that bonus material along with all of our patrons. And then if you're like, hey, this is pretty cool, consider becoming a patron. So this is your freebie. Merry New Year.
It's your fun
so
sample.
Check that out after this. Yeah.
So, our misconceptions about what dinosaurs look like are not limited to feathers, though. Last year, a paper came out showing strong evidence that Tyrannosaurus Rex had lips.
What?
So, yeah.
What? I missed
I
this.
think I saw that.
What?
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like,
So instead of
lips.
having its fearsome teeth
Snarl.
hanging out there in the open like a
Yeah.
crocodile, they were
Uh-huh.
covered similar to today's lizards. So like picture a Komodo dragon's mouth, if you know what a Komodo dragon looks like, just like the teeth are all
Right.
covered up.
Okay.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense, but that isn't what I immediately pictured when you said
Lips.
the T-Rex
Right.
had
well, yeah, no, I
lips.
picture the big, big,
Mwah.
yeah, big smackers.
Wild.
Which, of course, when you think about it, you kind of go, well, yeah, of course they probably did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It
How
makes
many
sense.
Animals just see walk around with teeth, and I think
How many bugs would get in your mouth?
there've been so many episodes. I think this is Rachel who's brought it up in past, but maybe it was you, Victoria. The people there was this artist who's done the.
Oh, I've
If people
absolutely
were to
talked
try
about
to
this.
recreate modern
Yes.
animals by only
Yeah.
looking at their skeletons,
Mm-hmm.
and you
yeah,
know,
I was going to
when you
talk
draw,
about that
if
some
you-
more
if you,
just now.
Oh,
oh yeah, so like if you draw them like without lips, they look just like, oh my God, a deer looks terrifying. It's got fangs, and it's like,
well, I mean,
Well, it's just a
illustrators
deer, you know,
for
like-
in the like a couple hundred years ago when they got skeletons or whatever of these creatures, or even like dead critters that were like mummified or whatever and brought back from a very different space. You've never seen a living critter. Like they bring back a
chupacabra.
walrus and okay, Kirk, and they blow it up and they get all the wrinkles out because they don't think wrinkles should be there, and it just becomes this little ball.
Okay, you can
Anyway.
stop because you're like taking up all the things I was going to say.
Okay, sorry. Keep going, Victoria.
Tell us all about it. Tell us about
Okay.
it, Victoria.
So yeah, as I was going to say, besides specific things like feathers and lips, there's just a general misconception about how prehistoric animals looked compared to modern
Right.
animals. And, as you said, like, because what we know is entirely based on skeletons almost until very recently, you could reconstruct an animal's musculature pretty well based only on a skeleton.
Right.
Mhm.
But real animals have all kinds of other stuff besides just the bones and the muscles. They have fat, all over their bodies or like fat pads, skin folds, air sacs, dewlaps, flexible snouts like an elephant's trunk. None of that is stuff you can tell from the skeleton, but it's a big part of how real animals look, along with the skin coverings like feathers or fur and whatever colors they contain. So, yes, I'd forgotten that this book had been mentioned on the show before, but there's a very cool 2012 book called All Yesterdays, Unique and Speculative Views of Dinosaurs and Other Prehistoric Animals by John Conway, C.M. Kozman, and Darren Naish. Naish is a paleozoologist, and Conway and Kozman are paleo artists. And they collaborated to produce these speculative but like scientifically supported images of dinosaurs. Cool. And like, first of all, they literally flesh out the pictures of how the dinosaurs could be more realistic to how real animals are. So with like chunky bodies and weird stuff coming out of their heads or whatever. And they also show them doing things other than eating each other or fighting.
I love that.
Right.
Which,
like on a nest. Yeah.
Right. How dinosaurs are often depicted in popular media. So, for example, their picture of a T-Rex is curled up sleeping. And they have a little group of small beaked dinosaurs that are like climbing in a tree. And there's a chubby triceratops with spikes all over the skin of its back, just kind of hanging out.
Fun.
It's all extremely cool and thought-provoking. But as you mentioned, like the most thought-provoking part is the section at the end of the book where the artists create images of modern animals in this kind of like shrink-wrapped
there it is. Yep.
dinosaur style, all muscle and bone.
Oh, God.
And they look horrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Terrifying creatures.
Okay, so there's a picture of a baboon. It looks like this emaciated vampire lizard with giant fangs. And a swan. It looks kind of like this snake-necked, claw-wielding alien. And a zebra. It's this bug-eyed, humpbacked creature with a single claw on each foot. It's like nothing like these animals look. But you look at it and you're like, okay, that's like kind of a horse skeleton, I guess. All right.
I guess, yeah.
But you can, by looking at those images, you can just see how poor in imagination our stereotypical images of dinosaurs are and how far they are from what dinosaurs probably really looked like.
Just imagine if the first people to do some of those drawings had taken a very different, approach to it and drawn them much more fleshed out. And you say, well, no, of course that their teeth would be covered. And of course they, no, there was probably webbing between these things, and then you look at it and go, like, our perception of what a dinosaur is might be so radically different. You wonder if they'd even be as popular with kids, like we started your story off with, if they didn't look like these, fierce, crazy creatures. You're like, oh, it looks kind of like this thing that looks like a fat whale. Like, it's not that interesting, like maybe you'd, like, oh, maybe those,
whales would be more popular, Kirk.
Yeah, so it's like it's fascinating. Like, I think whales are pretty popular, but like it's interesting to know how much like just a handful of artists really shaped our perception of these animals.
Yeah, totally.
Over time,
Yeah, and ultimately, we'll never be able to know everything about how prehistoric creatures looked, although we're learning more every year, including
until I get my time machine working.
Yeah, right. But at least in the world of scientific illustration, what we see is starting to reflect some of the updated ideas. More and more.
Very cool.
As to how long it'll be before the typical dino depiction in a preschool classroom is more accurate, I have no idea. Yeah. My main sources this week were Audubon, the New York Times, and Smithsonian Magazine.
Woohoo! Thanks, Victoria.
Very cool. Thank you.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Kirk will have something for us.
Yeah. It's birds.
Oh, man.
Shocker.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Yeah, I said right as we went to break, it's birds. Basically, it's dinosaurs, right? I'm talking about dinosaurs.
Yeah, dinosaurs.
I had this image in my head from when I was a kid. I remember going to Disney World and getting a hot dog in Epcot's World Showcase. looking back now, I'm not really sure which country in the World Showcase was serving hot dogs as part of their worldly cuisine.
Well, I think the
but,
U.S. is there in the World Showcase.
Is it?
Was
Yeah,
it a
it
hot
is.
dog
Where
or
it
was it
was.
a Frankfurter?
There
I
is
mean,
Germany as
who
well.
knows? Who knows?
I was just there,
You
so I
know,
was
they're
like,
trying to. Well, this was a long time ago. This was
That's
when I was a
fair.
child. So they're trying to appeal to children. So I'm going to cut them some slack, even if it was like, France or something. I don't know. So what I remember though was going and getting a hot dog, and they were like, "Hey, as soon as we hand it to you, like guard it with your life." And
oh,
like
yeah.
you got to like get it close to the body. Oh, you say, "Oh yeah, Rachel."
Yeah.
Why?
The birds.
Why?
Seagulls.
Why,
The
Rachel?
seagulls.
The
The
gulls.
gulls. They're
Yeah.
coming for you.
Okay, well, we sat there and watched as people would like get a hot dog and confidently walk away holding it out in front of them like, I have my hot dog. And the gulls would fly down and just yoink, just hot dog right out of the bun, flying off. And it happened again and again and again.
Mhm.
And it is just probably one of those formative memories as a child being like, whoa, these birds are pretty rad. They're pretty cool. Like this is
Yeah.
entertaining and clever and an amazing thing. In the days since then, I've often had the thought that gulls would eat us if they could.
Oh,
Like
totally.
they
Oh,
are,
absolutely.
they are voracious. Like, I mean, I think a lot of birds probably would, which maybe goes back to the dinosaur thing that Victoria was talking about. But I want to go back in time, not as far back in time as the dinosaurs that Victoria was talking about, and to the year 1924. Now, I know I'm older than you, Rachel, but I was not alive in 1924. This is not a story about my childhood.
Oh, good.
We're going to go somewhere far away from Orlando to South Africa, actually. Quarrymen who are working at the Northern Lime Company
Okay.
in this town of Taung, I believe it's pronounced Taung, Taung, South Africa. They were digging in the earth when they uncovered what appeared to be the skull of a primate. Now, they knew what this was, and it was a fossil. These workers commonly found fossils in this quarry. They'd find these big chunks of fossils, and they'd get probably kind of pissed about it because the sort of the matrix that the fossils were in was much harder than this lime that they were mining. And whenever they got to one of these little fossil beds, they're like, oh, get the dynamite. And they'd have to blow it up and get this crap out of the way.
Okay.
But once in a while, they found cool stuff. They take
Yeah.
some cool pieces home or something.
Fair.
And they found this skull. And they're like, well, this is pretty rad, right? It looks like a skull of a primate. And they showed it to this guy, E.G. Izod, who was the visiting director of the company that like managed the quarry. And he's like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, can I have this? And they're like, yeah, whatever. Like it's junk, right? So he thought it was kind of cool. He had it, and he did what you do with any, skull. You give it to your child. So he gave it to his son, this guy Pat Izod, and he was like, I got this really cool like fossilized skull, and he decided he wanted to display it on the mantle over his fireplace. And I'm thinking back now. I said his child. The story I've read is that it was his son. Maybe it was his adult son. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I do know is that it ended up being displayed on the mantle. Okay. There was a family friend who was visiting named Josephine Salmons, and she recognized this thing on their mantle as being something pretty unusual and potentially important. It was like, do you mind if I take this and show it to somebody? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, that's cool. So she showed it to her mentor, and both she and her mentor were anatomists and were very interested in this. And once he saw it too, was like, wow, I wonder if we can get more, like if there was more than just this. So they kind of went through the chain of people and contacted the quarry, and is like, if you find anything else like this, please let us know. And it wasn't too much later, they were sent an entire crate full of skulls and bones. And they're like,
Whoa.
oh, all right then.
Okay.
Let's just dig on in and see what we can find. Well, one of them that they found in this crate was even more interesting. It was clearly a juvenile primate with a flattish face, small teeth, And they could tell basically that there was an impression that there had been a complex brain inside it, which is super cool. They could tell that. So in 1925, they published a paper in Nature declaring it as a new species. And they called this species Australopithecus africanus. And this caused a huge stir. And there's a term that's going to come up and was popular at the time. And I got to do a little rant on this term. It's the term missing link. This is...
Yeah.
I don't like this term. What they had found was a transitional fossil that is thought to be a link between apes, primitive apes, like prehistoric apes, and humans. And it's sort of this obsession with like the media mostly to be like, oh, it's the missing link, because that's this pop culture term that is fundamentally a meaningless term. If you think about a chain is actually a really kind of cool metaphor in some ways for, evolution or its history. You have like an animal and it had its child and its child and its child and its child and child, and you have this long chain. But, if you find one of the links of that chain and you go, oh, I found the missing link. Like, what? There's not one special missing link. There's millions of links. So there's no one that's the missing link that's going to finally show that man and ape are connected.
Right.
What we have found are many different transitional fossils that are links in this chain. The whole idea of a chain is actually a really bad metaphor. It's more like a
like
tree,
chain
like a
mail.
family tree with many branches. Yeah. Well, no, because what I'm thinking of is more like you can have things that were lineages that didn't go anywhere, right? Like
right.
It's something evolved from apes that was getting more toward like humans were, and then one whole branch just kind of dies out and doesn't become humans. So it's really a tricky thing to look at any one sort of skull and go, well, is this a direct member of that lineage as though it was a unbroken chain? Or is this one of a group of hominids that, is part of the story of this evolution, but maybe this direct lineage died out and didn't become humans, right? Mm-hmm. So I just needed to rant a little bit about this term missing link. I hate that term. What was put out there was that this was a transitional fossil between apes and humans. At the time, 1925, this caused a lot of controversy.
Yep.
A number of people were just like, no way, that this is bogus. This is not what this is. Some people argued this is just the skull of a gorilla. That's what it is. This is just a type of, it's a primate clearly, but to say that it was some sort of link to humans is preposterous. Mm-hmm. A lot of the objections looking back now were actually religious objections more than actual scientific objections.
Right.
In more modern times, it is widely accepted that this is a legit transitional fossil between humans and apes. So very cool. But why am I telling you about it? Because it's cool enough as it is.
Yeah.
This skull became known as the Tong Child, named after the place that it was found. It's a cool story. It's a strange story on its own, but it got a little weirder in 2006.
Okay.
And you might be wondering, why did I start this story talking about
you want to talk about
Orlando?
Especially since you said you were going to talk about birds.
Birds. All right. Well, in 2006,
I think I heard this.
Anthropologist Lee Berger studied the Tong Child and discovered damage to the eye sockets.
Oh,
now he had previously done other studies, and he's like, I recognize this damage. He had seen the exact same damage in modern primates that had been killed by eagles. And so his claim is that these are talon marks inside the eye sockets, and also there's a depression along the skull that is characteristic of primates that have been preyed upon by eagles or, another large similar predatory bird. Which, we have eagles. We got like harpy, eagles that pick monkeys right out of trees and tuck in for dinner. And when we look at some of the types of marks those large eagles and stuff leave, it's the same marks that at least this guy, Lee Berger, was claiming to have found on this fossil. So it's very possible that the Tong child died by being eaten by a bird, maybe, because that we weren't there. So what we don't know is did this child die and then was predated upon by
Bird.
Right.
a raptor, or did the raptor come along and whoop, grab it and have it for lunch? I don't know that we can know that, although it would seem to indicate, I think I would kind of lean toward the idea that it actually was predated upon by a large raptor, simply because of the types of damage that was seen. Is kind of consistent with the way a bird grabs something when it's predating upon it, as we see with modern primates. So, oh my gosh! So like that's
wild.
Potentially, some of our ancestors were hunted by birds, and if birds are these modern
really
dinosaurs, I know dinosaurs
eagle.
as we think about them and humans did not live at the same time.
No,
but essentially the descendants of the dinosaurs were perhaps feasting on some of our ancestors, which is like, whoa.
That's poetic
That's really cool.
in a way, because they feasted on us, and then we kept going and evolving, and now we feast on them.
Yeah, we do have chicken once in a while. So, getting back to those gulls, I guess, I know like my grandmother, for example, was terrified she loved birds. She was a big bird watcher and whatnot, but she was terrified of them if they started to fly near her. Like birds flying around her head. And a lot of people have this fear. And you'll be somewhere at a beach and birds will fly over people's head and they're like, like they think they're about to be attacked. And you're like, that bird doesn't care about you. It's just flying by. Or maybe it wants your hot dog, right?
Right.
And it makes you wonder, like, Hitchcock the birds. It's this whole like cultural thing about like how terrifying birds can be. Or if you want a more recent film, Birdemic, which is, oh boy, that's an experience we can talk about sometime.
Okay.
It's look at if geez, if you're not familiar with Birdemic, go ahead and look it up sometime. It's not a great movie. It's not a B movie. It's like a C or a D movie. It's really something. But it makes you wonder, because there's this fear, is there some sort of like maybe even like a genetic predisposition that goes back to a time when we really did need to keep an eye, not just on the ground for things that are going to attack us, but an eye to the sky, lest a large bird make us prey for, and make us lunch. So pretty fascinating idea. I just wanted to plant that seed in your head, and hopefully, it won't grow into something growing out of your head. I don't know. It's a weird metaphor. Look, here's the deal. My sources this week for this story were Nature, the American Journal of Physical Anthropology, and of course, Wikipedia. So thanks for being along on my little journey of birds of prey eating hominids.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That's
I
what I got for
remember
ya.
seeing that on the
Wild.
news when that came out back in 2006. Yeah, it's like alarming to think about being grabbed by a giant eagle.
I don't like the idea of having something grab me by the eye sockets and carry me away.
Nope, that sounds awful. No, thank you.
Not great.
No.
I can tell you as a little fun bonus that from many years of having like animals out on trail cams to see what predates on them, that the eyeballs are often what's eaten first.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you got that to look forward to. All right, we're going to take a break. And Rachel.
Great.
I don't think you've gone yet. You got
I
something for us?
haven't. Oh, yeah, I do.
Awesome. See you soon.
Hi, fancy folks. Welcome to Lux Sci, where we make science fun, approachable, and most of all, fancy. I'm Dr. Lex, former microbiologist, current global health consultant and enthusiast of all the finer things in life. I'm often joined here by my husband, electrical engineer, inventor, and our audio engineer, Dr. Demos. In this podcast, we take listeners on a journey into the microscopic worlds of luxury items and unravel the fascinating intersection of science and opulence. From how bubbles form in champagne, to the molecular forces that harden clay in a kiln, to the amount of thrust needed to send a rocket to space. No luxurious topic is safe from our insatiable curiosity. We're on a mission to demystify science and show how it drives the world around us. No PhD or lab coat required. So if you've ever wondered how science and luxury seamlessly intertwine, join us as we uncover untold stories, hidden marvels, and the inner workings of scientific discovery and sophistication. Along the way, we'll also chat with amazing scientists and artisans, so subscribe now and let the exploration begin.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So I didn't get the memo that we were talking about dinosaurs this week. I must have missed that email or text or
There's
message.
no memo. There's no memo.
There's no memo.
It's random. It's part of the beauty.
I know. So I'm actually, instead of being on a bird or a dinosaur kick, I'm on a Lepidoptera kick. So last week I talked about that the large blue butterfly, which
that was so crazy.
Is a parasite on ants. Wild.
Go listen if you skip that one, you guys.
Oh,
it's really
you gotta
cool.
listen. So this week, I want to talk about a different species in the Lepidoptera order. Okay? So the species that I'm going to talk about actually ties into a topic that I've covered before on the podcast, the gopher tortoise. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was recently.
It was pretty recent. I discovered this after someone sent me a Tumblr post, which made me go on a deep dive, and it's just wait. So we've discussed also on the podcast decomposers and how things get broken down, some animals and mechanisms of decomposition in nature. I'm thinking like the bearded vultures who actually eat bones and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
so cool.
What happens to leftovers like keratin when it comes to hooves and horns and things like that? What do y'all think happens there?
I guess my first guess would be that they get eaten. I mean, I would think
by
rodents.
What? Rodents?
Rodents would my guess, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that
gnawing them up.
Reasonable. I know rodents eat like deer antlers and stuff.
Yeah.
Right, for the calcium.
But keratin, yeah, for the calcium, but I mean, keratin,
protein.
It's protein, right?
Pretty hard to digest, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you're going to tell me that butterflies are eating it, you're going to blow my freaking mind.
Butterflies, given where this is going.
Well, one way that keratin gets taken care of in the natural world is by the ceratophagia moth.
A moth.
What?
Yes. I told you I'm on a kick.
What, Rachel?
Yeah. So there are 6...
You gotta explain this one.
Oh, just wait. So in the world, primarily in Africa and parts of Asia, there are 16 and one species in North America. There are 16 species total of the ceratophagia moth that the caterpillars feed exclusively on keratin of dead animals.
Okay, so it's the larva caterpillars,
not the
adults.
butterfly itself.
That makes a little bit more sense. It's not the moths themselves. Like it's well, I mean it is, but you know what I mean.
Still,
I feel a little better. Okay,
good.
Still weird.
It's still very wild. Specifically, primarily they feed on the horns and hooves. There are more species of ceratophagia moths in. By the way, I'm giving myself a pat on the back for this week and last week doing so well on the scientific names. I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah, you've been doing great.
Golf clap.
So primarily the ceratophagia, of course I say and I mess it up, eat the horns and the hooves of ungulates, primarily in Africa, because there's quite a few ungulates and hooved creatures that are there. But there is one species that occurs in North America. This species is the ceratophagia vincinella. And this is just wild. It doesn't eat the hooves of like deer or anything like that. It only occurs in Florida and Mississippi, and it only eats the shell of dead gopher tortoises.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you did say you were going to talk about gopher tortoises.
I did. Haha.
Oh, I was thinking like, is it gonna be pronghorn and bison and stuff? No, it's the shells of gopher tortoises.
Just shells are
so
only
specific.
Partly keratin, they're partly bone.
Yeah,
I know.
It's just like the scoots on the outside.
Covering.
Exactly. So they just feed on that. So what happens?
That's so specific.
It's so specific. It's so wild.
Wow.
It's
How
so
would you
crazy.
find that?
Right? So this is to give you a little idea of what this looks like. This is a tiny, tiny moth. Okay. When I was looking at pictures, like we're talking like centimeters. Okay. This is teeny tiny.
Mm-hmm.
As a caterpillar, they look very similar to like a mealworm. They're beige, creamish body, and they have like a darker brown head around where like their mouth is, their mouth parts and things. And then as an adult, it's a really thin moth. The wings close in. They don't spread out, with a black body and a fuzzy cream colored head with like a tiny, I think, black dot. It's absolutely wild. Okay.
Cool.
Now that's what that looks like. Now this adult moth will fly around until it finds a dead gopher tortoise shell. It will lay a series of eggs on that shell. Okay.
Okay. That makes a little more sense. Yep.
Right. The eggs will emerge as the little tiny caterpillars, and they will wrap themselves. They will construct a mass of silk on the underside to create like an anchor space, and into the soil of the shell. And as it, or into the soil underneath the shell, I should say, not soil of the shell. That doesn't make any sense. And what will happen is they will just eat and munch and chew and keep going until there's no keratin left. And then once they are big enough, and the keratin in their space is gone, they will pupate within that protective layer of silk, emerge, and then fly away. Wild.
It's amazing. I guess once you lay it all out, it doesn't seem that wild. I mean, there's lots of members of
very
not
specific.
just Lepidoptera, but other orders that find very specific tree species, plant species, or host species to lay their young on. So I guess it's not that wild. It just never occurred to me.
Right. Which is really what like blew my mind, is like it didn't occur to me either. But what really got me is the paper that I'm going to quote a little bit later. Well, I'll quote it right now. One of my sources. It's a caterpillar that eats tortoise shells. It's a little bit of an older paper. It's by M. Durup, N.D. Durup, M. Eisner, and T. Eisner, and it was published in the American Entomologist in 2005. They went through and talked about this caterpillar, not only the caterpillar, but the life cycle, and included beautiful photos. It's free to be able to access and read. And it's a really short, lovely little read. But like I mentioned when I talked about gopher tortoises, is their populations are in decline.
Right.
Yeah.
So this moth species is also in decline because of the lack of dead tortoises for them to be able to lay eggs and eat. And
that makes sense.
really, truly, a lot of us, because it's not a charismatic megafauna, it does not, like a gopher tortoise, for example, or a panda bear, people don't super care. So in this paper, I'm actually going to quote this because I'm going to end on this quote. Because while it's not like a super crazy, wild, strange nature thing, it is a little wild that there is this one particular species, not even 16 species of moth that eats keratin. Okay.
Right.
But I'm actually going to end with a quote from this paper because they go through and they talk about this species and they have a lot of passion about it. And then they talk about the fact that it is an endangered species. And it gives me chills the way that they talk about it. Okay? So, and I quote,
Okay.
realizing that a species is imperiled has broad connotations, given that it tells us something about the plight of nature itself. It reminds us that of the need to implement conservation measures and to protect the region of which the species is a part. But aside from the broader picture, species have intrinsic worth that are deserving of preservation. Surely an oddity such as C. vincenella cannot simply be allowed to vanish. We should speak up on behalf of this little moth, not only because by doing so we would bolster conservation efforts now underway in Florida, but we would be calling attention to the existence of a species that is so infinitely worth knowing.
Excellent.
It's a beautiful
Well said.
way to put the concept of conservation efforts into perspective, because it's hard to care about so many different things. But if efforts for one species work for multiple species, you shouldn't do it or not care about this little moth because it's just one little species of moth. You should care because what do we do without this little moth? Why does it have to have a worth or connection to humans in order for it to have some worth of being saved, you know?
Right. This has intrinsic value.
Exactly. So it was just a beautiful little paragraph, and learning about this moth was wild in the first place, but that gave me chills. So that's how I'm going to end this week. With that, my other sources besides this paper, which I'll tell you again, were Wikipedia and the Nature Serve Explorer. The paper again was a caterpillar that eats tortoise shells in the American Entomologist in 2005. So
I like that straightforward title.
Right? And it's 4
Tells you
pages.
what's going on.
It tells you exactly what's happening. It's 4 pages. It's really not that bad of a paper to or read through, and it's just a delight.
I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah. So I believe
Thank you
that's
for bringing
it.
us that story.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So thanks,
what
everyone.
A great group of stories.
It's so fun. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Go care about something this week. Thanks for listening.
Good message.
Yeah. We'll see you all next
See you
week.
next week.
See you next
Bye.
week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.